Eliza thought a cabin deep in the woods would bring her peace. No phone. No people. Just silence. But when the trapdoor began knocking at 3:12 a.m., she realized something was living beneath her, something that wanted her name, and her face. The first knock came in the middle of the night. Eliza was half awake, floating in that strange, syrupy space between dreaming and knowing she was alone. Her eyes flicked open in the dark. The room was cold, still. The fire had died sometime after midnight, and only the pale blue of the moon filtered through the curtains, casting long shadows over the hardwood floor. Then, knock. A single, sharp tap, almost polite, as if someone was testing the idea of being let in. She sat up slowly, every part of her body weighted by the cold. Her breath was visible. She glanced toward the old stone fireplace. Nothing but ash. The knock hadn't come from the door. It was softer than that. More distant. Probably the wind, she whispered, rubbing her arms. Her voice sounded small, wrong somehow. As if it didn't quite belong in the room. But wind didn't knock. She swung her legs off the edge of the couch. The cabin didn't have a bedroom, just an open floor plan. A hearth, a low couch, a kitchenette, and an antique rocking chair that hadn't stopped creaking since she arrived. She glanced at it. It was still now, perfectly still. Her phone said 3:12 a.m. No signal. Just like every other night since she drove up the unmarked gravel road into Ash Pines. Another knock. This time, closer. Knock. It sounded like it came from just beyond the front door. Not pounding. Not urgent. Just insistent. She walked toward it, barefoot on cold wood. "Hello?" she called, her voice cracking from disuse. She reached the door and hesitated. No sound now. No footsteps. No wind. Just the heavy silence of the forest pressing up against the glass. She opened it a crack. Outside, the trees stood motionless under moonlight. Fog clung to their trunks like smoke wrapping around old bones. Her porch light flickered once, then steadied. No one was there. But then, very quietly, just behind her. Knock. From inside the cabin. She turned so fast her heels scraped the floor. "Who's there?" she called, backing into the doorway. She reached for the light switch near the door. Nothing. The bulb clicked but didn't glow. Great. Her voice was trembling now. Just great. She looked across the room. Everything was still. The rocking chair hadn't moved. The couch was empty. But something felt wrong. Like the walls had breathed while her back was turned. She took a cautious step inside. The air was colder now, somehow. Heavier. Another knock, this one impossibly quiet. It sounded like it came from under the floorboards. She dropped to one knee. Listened. Silence. Then, scraping. Like nails dragging slowly across old wood. She stood up fast and moved to the corner cabinet, rummaging until she found the flashlight she'd packed. She clicked it on, weak, yellow light, but it was something. Then something caught her eye, the rocking chair. It was moving now. Barely. Back and forth. Back and forth. She hadn't heard it start. Eliza. She froze. Someone had whispered her name. Eliza. It was unmistakable this time, whispered, slow, and close. Too close. She spun around, flashlight shaking in her grip, the beam cutting across the dark like a blade. No one. Just shadows stacked in the corners like old furniture, and that damned rocking chair still moving, just slightly, like it had caught a breeze that wasn't there. Eliza, the whisper came again, and she knew it wasn't her imagination. It wasn't in her head. It had shape. Direction. It came from beneath her. Her breath caught as she slowly pointed the flashlight toward the floor. There, by the edge of the fireplace, was a small, square seam in the wood she hadn't noticed before. A hatch. Covered in dust and just large enough for someone to fit through. Eliza dropped to her knees, brushing the edges clean. Her fingers trembled as she found the iron loop embedded in the hatch. It was ice cold. She didn't want to open it. Not because she thought something was down there, but because she knew something was. She pulled. The hatch creaked open like a scream held too long, revealing a narrow crawlspace beneath the floorboards. Her flashlight beam couldn't reach the end. It just disappeared into a wall of black. She lowered the light and froze. There were scratches along the inside of the hatch door. Long, jagged ones. As if someone, or something, had tried to claw their way out. Her throat tightened. Then, another sound. Not a knock this time. A shuffle. Slow and dragging. Eliza, the voice croaked again, fainter this time. Not malicious. Not angry. Almost sad. No, she whispered, stepping back. Nope. No, no, no. She slammed the hatch shut. The echo boomed through the cabin like a gunshot. The rocking chair stopped moving. Silence. Then, her phone buzzed. She startled so hard she dropped the flashlight. It rolled under the couch, casting twisted shadows as it spun. Heart racing, she grabbed the phone. The screen was cracked, battery at 5%. One new voicemail. No missed call. No notification of reception. She hesitated, then pressed play. The message was just breathing. Heavy, slow breathing. For nearly 20 seconds. Then. Eliza, please, don't leave me here. She ended the message, her hands trembling so hard she nearly dropped the phone again. That's when she noticed it. Her reflection. In the windowpane behind her. She was standing still. But the reflection was moving. Eliza's breath hitched as she stared at the window. She was frozen in place. But her reflection, no, it wasn't a reflection, was slowly tilting its head. First left. Then right. Like it was curious. Or confused. Then it smiled. Not a kind smile. Not human. Too wide. Too wrong. It showed teeth. Eliza backed away slowly, not daring to blink. Her foot hit the edge of the couch, sending the flashlight rolling in another wild arc. The beam cut across the window again. And the reflection was gone. The window now showed only her. Pale, shaking, alone. Or so it seemed. She didn't move for a full minute. Just listened. The only sound was her own heartbeat, slamming against her ribs. Then. Scrape. Scrape. It was coming from under the floor again. Something dragging. Slow. Heavy. Eliza rushed to the fireplace and grabbed the rusted fire poker. She didn't want to use it. But she needed something. She turned in a circle, eyes sweeping the room. Every corner now looked unfamiliar. The cabin suddenly felt larger. Stretched. Like the walls had moved when she wasn't looking. The voicemail repeated itself without her pressing anything. Eliza, please, don't leave me here. She dropped the phone. This time, when she looked up, the rocking chair was facing the wall. She hadn't moved it. And it hadn't made a sound. She didn't sleep. Instead, she sat by the cold hearth with the fire poker clutched tight, eyes wide in the dim light of a single candle. Her phone had died hours ago. The forest outside never seemed to lighten. It was like dawn had forgotten this place. When the sun finally did rise, weak and gray, Eliza stepped outside. The air was heavy. The fog still hung low, refusing to lift. Her breath came in short, sharp puffs as she stepped off the porch. She had to get out. But her car wouldn't start. The battery was drained, even though it was brand new. The keys felt heavy in her hand. Wrong. She decided to walk. But the woods didn't look right. No birds. No rustling. Just that unnatural silence. She turned back toward the cabin after less than 5 minutes. But it was gone. Or rather, it had moved. It was 20 feet from where it should have been. Facing a different direction. She blinked hard. Backed away. Then ran. Back inside, she slammed the door shut and locked it, though she wasn't sure why. Whatever this was, it wasn't kept out by locks. Later that afternoon, she found the book. It was tucked behind a loose plank in the wall near the hearth, wrapped in brittle cloth. The cover was leather. Hand-stitched. No title. Inside, the pages were filled with names. Dozens of them. All written in the same shaky handwriting. Each name was crossed out, except one. Eliza Harrow. She dropped the book. The candle flickered as if it, too, had read her name. And then, beneath the floor again. Knock. 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 This time it wasn't polite. This time, it was impatient. She opened the hatch before she could stop herself. Something deeper than curiosity compelled her now. A sense of unfinished business. Like the air itself had taken hold of her limbs. The iron loop was colder than ever. Her fingers burned as she pulled. The hatch creaked open, revealing the crawlspace again. But now she saw things she hadn't noticed before. Photos. Hundreds of them. Nailed to the wooden support beams. Faces. Eyes wide. Smiles forced. All of them black and white. All of them taken in this cabin. Some of them moved. She shone her flashlight down, catching one photo dead on. The girl in it blinked. Just once. Then the image stilled again. Eliza's throat felt too tight to scream. She crawled down slowly, her breath hitching at every sound. The floor above groaned behind her. The deeper she moved, the colder the air grew. The crawlspace stretched further than it should have. Far beyond the cabin's foundation. It felt more like a tunnel now. A passage leading down into the forest's roots. And then, there was a light. A faint, flickering lantern. Sitting on a stone step. Just ahead. She reached it. Lifted it slowly. Behind the lantern, carved into the wall, was a single word. Return. She turned. The crawlspace was gone. The tunnel behind her had sealed shut. And she was no longer under the cabin. She was somewhere else. Eliza held the lantern up with trembling fingers. The space she stood in now wasn't made of wood, it was stone. Old stone. Damp and crumbling. The air smelled like earth and metal, like something rusted and rotting in the dark. The word, return, glowed faintly under the lantern's flicker, carved with deep gouges. It was freshly scratched. Wet dust still clung to the groove. She stepped forward, the lantern casting long shadows along the walls. The tunnel was narrow, barely wide enough to walk without brushing her shoulders against the cold stone. She kept moving, unsure why. Fear gripped her, yes, but so did something else. Something that pulled. The further she walked, the more the walls changed. First, old tools hung on hooks, shovels, picks, rusted shears. Then came the drawings. Hundreds of them. Crude chalk images, tall figures with too long limbs, eyeless faces, children kneeling, heads bowed. Then scribbled words. She watches. We forgot her name. The woods do not forgive. Her breath hitched as she passed a mirror nailed to the wall, warped and cracked down the center. She wasn't in the reflection. The lantern flickered violently. And then she heard it. Breathing. Not close. But not far. Heavy. Like something ancient trying not to be heard. And underneath it, soft footsteps, padding on wet stone. Eliza backed away from the sound. Her boot slipped slightly on something slick. She looked down. It was a child's shoe. Molded. Ancient. Stuck in dried mud. And next to it was another name, scratched into the wall. Eliza. This one had no last name. Just Eliza. Eliza moved faster now, but the tunnel twisted like it was alive. It never led quite where she expected. Lefts became rights. Walls narrowed and widened without reason. The air was humming. At first, it sounded like static, but the longer she listened, the more it became something else. Voices. Whispering. Not words. Just breath that remembered how to speak. Then she came to the room. It wasn't large, but it was wrong. Angled strangely. Like it had been carved by something with no understanding of symmetry. In the center stood a table. Not made of wood or stone, this one was made of bone. Twisted, fused vertebrae and femurs, yellow with age. And atop it, a box. Small. Black. Wrapped in old cloth and bound with a string of human hair. She should have run. Instead, she reached for it. The moment her fingers touched the box, the whispering stopped. Everything stopped. Even her breathing. She opened it slowly. Inside was a photo. Her. Taken last night. She was asleep on the couch. And standing just behind her in the photo was a figure in the dark. No face. Just blackness where the head should be. But its hand was resting lightly on her shoulder. And then, in the pitch silence, she heard the voice again, this time, right in her ear. You've always been here. She dropped the box and ran. The lantern jerked wildly in her hand, shadows careening along the walls like living things. The tunnel felt narrower now, tighter. It was collapsing in on itself, breathing, moaning with every step she took. Behind her, footsteps. Not running. Just following. Patient. Slow. She could hear the creak of old joints, the drag of something heavy. And a voice, not whispering now but speaking. Repeating the same thing over and over. Return the name. Return the name. Return the name. She didn't know what it meant. She didn't want to know. After what felt like miles, she saw it, a door. Wooden, warped, broken in the middle like it had been kicked in years ago and never repaired. She shoved it open and stumbled through. She was back in the cabin. The hearth was cold. The rocking chair was still. The floorboards silent. But everything was wrong. The air was thick with smoke, though there was no fire. The walls dripped with condensation. The candle had melted completely. And the photographs on the wall. They were gone. All but one. Her face. Eyes shut. Sleeping. And beneath it, someone had written in ash. One of us now. The photo stared back at her. She touched it with one trembling finger. The surface was still warm, like it had just been developed. Like someone had placed it there only moments ago. The lantern had gone out. The cabin lights were still dead. Eliza stood in the thick, smoky gloom, heart hammering. Then she noticed something new. The front door was open. Wide open. Fog spilled inside like it was alive, curling around her ankles. And there, just beyond the porch, stood a figure. Still. Unmoving. It was tall. Thin. Not quite touching the ground. Its head tilted slowly, studying her like a painting studies its viewer. "Eliza," it said. Not a whisper this time. Not a breath. A voice. Ancient. Dry. Like leaves rustling across a coffin lid. She didn't answer. Couldn't. The thing stepped forward. Not walking, just gliding. Then it stopped at the edge of the threshold. It didn't cross. It couldn't. Eliza felt something shift in her memory. A story her grandmother told her once, years ago, when she was small and feverish. About things in the woods. About rules. They can't come in unless they're invited. She slammed the door. A scream rose from outside, not of rage, but of grief. Of hunger denied. It faded into the trees. But she knew it hadn't gone far. That night, she didn't sleep. She lit the last candle she could find and searched the cabin from floor to ceiling. Behind a loose stone near the hearth, she found it. An old, water-damaged journal. Inside the cover was a name. Marion Crowthorne, 1891. Eliza flipped through the fragile pages, careful not to tear them. The entries were short. Panicked. Fragmented. March 2nd, the woman in the woods has no face. Don't look at her directly. March 5th, the floor knocks when I try to leave. It knows when I pack. March 9th, I heard my mother last night. She's been dead 5 years. March 12th, I invited it in by accident. It took my name. I don't remember who I am anymore. March 14th, if someone finds this, don't speak to the voice. Don't give it your name. The last entry was a single line, barely legible. Too late. It's wearing me now. Eliza's mouth went dry. She closed the journal and backed away from the hearth. The wind outside had picked up, howling through the trees. And then, something knocked on the back door. 3 times. Just like before. Eliza didn't answer the knock. She waited in silence, gripping the fire poker again. The knocking stopped. But she knew it hadn't left. It was waiting. She turned back to the journal, flipping to the front page again. Tucked between 2 pages was a folded scrap of paper. It read, "To banish the hollow one, speak your name backward before it speaks it forward." She read it once. Twice. She didn't understand. Backward? What did that even mean? Was it literal? Symbolic? Was this some kind of folklore riddle? She looked toward the hatch in the floor. Still shut. Still quiet. For now. Then her phone lit up. Even though it had been dead for hours. One new message. It was a voice memo. And it was playing itself. Eliza Harrow, the voice said slowly, stretching her name like taffy. Eliza Harrow. Eliza. Harrow. She gritted her teeth. Ora Hazel. She whispered. Or, Ra. Ha, Zyle. The cabin shuddered. A low groan passed through the walls like the house had just exhaled. She wasn't sure if she'd said it right. But the wind outside stopped. The knocking did not return. Something had changed. But it wasn't over. She could feel it. The next morning, Eliza found herself standing at the edge of the tree line again. The fog had lifted slightly, but the woods still looked wrong. Each tree leaned subtly inward, their branches creaking in a wind she couldn't feel. They were watching. In her hand was Marion Crowthorne's journal. Eliza didn't remember falling asleep. Or waking up. It was like time had begun skipping, sliding. Inside the cabin, the hatch remained sealed, but she swore she heard whispers through the floorboards again, lower now, almost disappointed. She returned to the journal and read carefully, hunting for something, anything, useful. March 16th, the Hollow One lives in names. If it learns yours, you are its forever. But if you forget it, it forgets you too. March 19th, my name is Marion Crowthorne. My name is Marion Crowthorne. My name is... The handwriting broke off midline, as if snatched away. She turned the page. One final entry. There's a well behind the cabin. Under the pines. It started there. Ended there. Eliza froze. She remembered the stone ring, half buried in moss behind the trees. She thought it was just a planter or fire pit. But it had a cover. Round. Heavy. Unmoved. Until now. Eliza didn't want to go out there. But something in the air had changed. The house no longer felt like a place she could hide. So she stepped out into the woods behind the cabin, journal in one pocket, flashlight in hand, the poker tucked under her arm like a sword. She found the well quickly, the trees clearing around it in a perfect circle. Too perfect. The moss here was dead. Blackened. She approached slowly. The cover was made of thick, warped wood. A heavy stone sat atop it like a lock. She shoved it aside, grunting, and pulled at the lid. It opened with a shriek like something dying. The inside of the well was impossibly dark. Even with the flashlight, she couldn't see the bottom. But she could hear something. Dripping. And then... Eliza. The voice rose from the darkness like steam. Wet. Whispering. Familiar. Too familiar. It was her own voice. Eliza, come down. I need your help. Her hands gripped the edge of the well. She leaned forward, against every instinct, trying to see. And the eyes blinked back. Dozens of them. Milky white. Embedded in the stone walls of the well like barnacles. They blinked. All at once. She screamed and stumbled back, heart slamming into her ribs. The whispering followed her. We remember. We remember. We remember your name. She ran. Back to the cabin. But the door was already open. Inside the